This old world is a bold world and a new world for me. Stars, when you shine, you know how I feel. Scent of the pine, you know how I feel. Freedom is mine. I know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me.
Hi, this is Reno Lovison, executive producer at ChicagoBroadcastingNetwork.com. And I am here with, and no kidding, one of my very good friends, Richard Damien, who I have known for, well, let's say quite a long time. Richard and I have been friends since we were kids, and we'll talk a little bit about that. He is a master energy healer and intuitive life coach. He's also a longtime actor and performer, and he is currently in the process of producing a play based on his life called A Monk in the World, which is also the name and title of his book. So we're going to talk about that within the context of Richard's experience as a pretty much lifelong Chicagoan, having grown up in Chicago, and we're going to talk about his return to Chicago, but also the times that he's spent in New York City and Los Angeles and other places. And he's with us live today from the Theater District in New York City. And welcome, Richard Damien.
Thank you, Reno. It's so great to see you.
It's awesome to see you, and nice to spend this time together. So as I alluded to, let's see, Richard grew up in Chicago on the far south side, as I did too. I grew up in Pullman, which I've mentioned on several occasions on this show. Mm-hmm. And Richard grew up about I can't believe it, but it was only about 3 miles away.
South Shore Gardens.
Yeah, South Shore Gardens, AKA sort of Pill Hill, though, right?
Well, near it. Near it. Not officially in Pill Hill, but near it.
But Richard's neighborhood was the far south end of South Shore, near, say, 95th and Stony Island, roughly. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And I know you did not have a great experience, your high school experience starting out at Bowen, but you did ultimately transfer to Nicholas Senn on the north side, which is also my wife Julie's alma mater, as you well know, but our listeners might be interested to know. So that's a little bit of our Chicago connection. So Richard, why don't we start with growing up on the south side in Chicago, and was that a good experience for you? And what do you remember that you liked, and what would you like to share about that?
Well, what I remember that I liked is my father for a while was in the restaurant business, and he had a hot dog joint on Stony Island.
Oh, I don't think I knew.
Called the Hot Diggity Dog.
Okay.
And I remember when I started kindergarten, he had that. I went to Joseph Warren Elementary. And he would pick me up, and then drive down. That was at 91st and Jeffrey.
Okay.
And then he would drive me down to Stony Island, wherever it was, 87th and Stony Island, something like that, where his hot dog joint was.
Okay.
So I kind of enjoyed that, but it also was kind of, in those days, there was a lot of grease, the fries, and I remember that smell of the grease.
Yes. Okay. But I've never known you to eschew a French fry, though.
I know. I try to stay away from them, but it's so hard. It's so hard.
So that's exciting. See, I mean, this is great. We're having this conversation, and I learned something new. I really had no idea. Of course, I know your dad, Ben Rosenthal, as a a writer, a playwright, and
Right.
talk a little bit about that. But I had no idea he was a hot dog vendor on 87th and Stony Island. That's fantastic. So good. Any
Yeah.
other things on the South Side that you want to
Well, I
mention?
remember Kitty Land on 95th Street. Did you ever go there?
Yes, and I wondered, I thought about it this morning as I was thinking about talking to you today, and it seems to me you were close enough to walk there. Did you actually walk there?
Sometimes we walked to Hillman's, which was
Okay, yeah,
the grocery store
yep,
there, and there was like a coffee shop next to it.
okay.
So my mother and I walked there when I was very little because we were 91st. We went under the viaduct
Mm-hmm. At Stony
in
Island
95th. Yeah,
or
well,
at,
no,
at Jeffrey.
it wasn't even Jeffrey. Was that Jeffrey?
I think so.
Okay, but whatever it was like 5 blocks to get
Right.
to the viaduct, and then we walked through the viaduct, and there was Kittyland and Hillman's and the bowling alley. Remember the bowling alley?
No, I don't. I do remember Hillman's because my mom liked to shop there periodically. It was a little out of our neighborhood, but that was
Yeah.
my mom, grew up in South Chicago. So, where you lived was between where we lived and where she grew
Right.
up. And so that
And
Hillman's.
Tops was the name of the coffee shop.
Oh, okay.
Tops.
Awesome. Yeah. And so, yes, I wondered about Kittyland,
Yeah.
and I wondered if you were actually able to walk over there, but you say it was Hillman's was the easier walk. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Kittyland was further west.
West, yes, exactly. Right. And then that one thing I have to say about Hillman's is what I absolutely loved there were those cookies that I think were chocolate on the bottom. They had a piece of marshmallow on top of it.
Yes.
And that they had coconut.
Yes.
So if whoever went there, my mom had to buy me at least a couple of those. So
Yeah, I remember those.
so all right, well that's good. So that's probably, I mean, that's great. It's nice. I have a number of listeners who grew up on the South Side or from South Shore, and people always enjoy sort of feeling that little nostalgic feeling of, whether it's remembering that cookie or a ride at Kittyland. It's always fun to think about that. So more importantly, though, we came to know each other through our theater endeavors as young children. We met at the Jack and Jill Players, which you obviously know, but for our listeners, the Jack and Jill Players was a theater group that was performed for and by children, which was an unusual situation. And the theater was at 218 South Wabash, just near Wabash and Adams. And when I first joined, I think you were on the road with Oliver, and I heard about you. I think Mr. Adams, who was our director, producer, owner of the theater, was telling me about this kid who I think also grew up on the South Side, and he was away right now and traveling doing Oliver. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that time?
Well, I started Jack and Jill when I was 7 in 1961.
Mm-hmm.
And, I loved it. And I loved how, it was kids doing these shows. And then eventually we did, full length Broadway musicals, all done by kids from age, 5 to 18, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Very ambitious.
Sure.
And then with Oliver, I kind of had a dream, a vision that I was going to be in that show after I saw a scene from it on Ed Sullivan. And I told my parents, I'm going to be in that show. So my father wrote a letter to David Merrick, the producer in New York, and we got a response saying, when the show comes to Chicago, when we're looking for replacements, we'll contact you. So
Amazing.
2 years later, they did. It was playing at the Schubert on Monroe, which is now called something else. What is the Schubert? Not the Cadillac. The
Nederlander?
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Okay, I know it's
I
no
should
longer.
know, Mr. Theater Review. You think?
Yeah, you are the reviewer of reviewers.
I don't have your memory to remember what's what. So.
But it was on Monroe off State Street.
Right. Yeah. The Nederlander. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they had like 200 little boys there. I was 11. I was 10 at that time.
Okay.
Auditioning, and so I was the one that got picked out of all the little boys. So my dream came true. And my mom and I traveled around the country for 6 months doing the show. And then it played back in New York for 2 months at the Martin Beck Theater. So it was really a wonderful experience. And then I didn't want to leave. I didn't want it to end.
I'm sure.
But I came back to Jack and Jill, which is where I met you.
Yeah.
I saw you as Kurt in The Sound of Music, which was the current Jack and Jill production.
Oh, you saw me at doing it at Jack and Jill, or
Yes,
yeah,
I didn't see. I saw you at Mill Run also.
okay.
But this is 1965.
Okay, right,
Before Mill Run,
right.
and so I saw you, and I somehow met you after that.
Okay.
You know, you were Kurt,
Yeah.
and then Mr. Adams said, "Hey, you want to?" You know, because the cast changed at every performance, which was unusual for theater.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. So we would often meet on stage having never even rehearsed.
Right.
It would just be, oh,
And Mr. Adams said, like 2 weeks later, he said, "Hey, you want to play the captain?" You know, I was only 11 years old. And he said, "Cheryl Banish is playing Maria. You want to play the captain?"
Yeah.
So I had to memorize the lines in one day, and then I was the captain, even though I was, short. It's like they didn't care about, how you looked, what age you were, what height you were. It's like everyone got a chance, right?
Oh, it was beautiful. Yeah. And people.
And all races too, which was very unique at that time. It was completely interracial.
Way ahead of the curve on that. And,
Right.
and to have the Von Trapp family might be comprised of any number of ethnic groups, and it was great. So we had a wonderful experience. It was an opportunity to learn so much repertoire, repertoire, as well as music repertoire, and to, like you said, have those situations where, hey, this weekend you're going to be so and so, learn the lines and be ready and be on stage, and somehow we would pull it off. And I'm sure we were. Some of these performances were absolutely crazy, but everyone I know who attended a Jack and Jill performance always has fond memories of it. And we played for virtually every Girl Scout in Chicago, because Saturday performances were comprised of typically about 150 to 200 Girl Scouts in the audience, and it was wonderful. So, and Julie again was a Girl Scout and remembers well going to Jack and Jill.
When Julie went there. Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And Julie, Reno's wife, I graduated high school with her.
Right.
I was around her. I wasn't really friends with her, but I met her. Mm-hmm. I think she saw me in the theater department at Sen.
I'm sure.
So we performed for the whole school, but I wasn't, friends with her, but I was around her. And then years later, I found out that Reno married her.
So, well, it's, so many times that we've, our lives have, touched base or we've, crossed paths. And I think that's great, because, it was a long time when we didn't see each other for many, many years. And then I'll go to that right away, is that, then your mother, bless her, Shirley, who lived to be 101.
1 and a half.
And I ran into her when she was living at the Breakers on Sheridan Road. I was there for an event and she was one of the
ambassadors.
Yeah, people who would sort of greet people when they came for the event and so on and so forth. And I looked at her, she was all of 80 something at that point, probably in her 80s. But I looked at her and she had a little tag said Shirley. And I thought, oh my God, that's Shirley Rosenthal. I said, she looked exactly the same as I remembered her when we were.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, to me, I just knew.
Wow.
And I just went up to her and I said, hello. And she looked at me like, do I know you? And I said, my name's Reno. And she was like, oh my God, she just hugged me and you've got to call Richard. We've got, and then that's when we became reacquainted, which was, probably 20 years ago now, something like that.
And we went to that, I'm forgetting the name of it, the coffee shop on Broadway and not Wellington, the other block that I lived on. What was that? What's the one block north of Wellington?
I don't know. I thought, was it Le Peep that we were? Is that where we started having our periodic?
No, first we went to that coffee shop. It was like 2 blocks south of Belmont.
Okay. Yeah. And then it wasn't Le Peep. It was the other egg place.
Oh.
I can't remember. Oh,
okay.
Yoke
later on was our place.
Yeah. Okay. So there we
Diversey.
go. Yeah. So, Anyway, so yeah, it was just great. And, you know, your mom was, it was great to see her and to get reacquainted with both of you. And then, of course, you did a number of performances there at the Breakers for the folks there, which I had the good fortune to videotape for you. And that was a lot of fun. And in fact, the opening number that I played for this interview was one of the a cappella numbers
Oh,
from one of our performances. And so anyway, so that your performances rather, but the videos that I made. So let's see what else. Let's get into your life a little bit here, and of course the fact that you're a master energy healer and intuitive coach. So why don't we start with just telling me a little bit about, you know, what that means?
what that means is that I'm able to move energy through people's bodies and around people's energy field in such a way that they can let go of negativity that they're holding on to. For instance, experiences of rejection, abandonment, disappointment. We all carry stuff. You know, we're all sensitive human beings. And what happens is the energy kind of gloms on us and permeates. And until we are free of that energy, it's more difficult to receive love and support and success because we're carrying around a lot of negativity. And we may not even know it consciously, but we may feel that something's blocking me. So instead of like going to a therapist where you analyze it, I'm able to actually move the energy up and out and bring people in a state of alignment so they can make positive changes in their life.
Great.
And yeah.
Yeah. So how does that manifest itself? Do you meet people individually, and I know you also meet people by phone, right?
Yes, by phone and sometimes virtually and in person. It doesn't have to be in person. I've done sessions with people all over the world, in Israel and Bali and Germany, and you know, they don't have to be in the room with me, but they experience the benefit of a shift in their energy. And then being an intuitive life coach, I also can identify what I see blocking them, what caused it. And I give people tools so that they can manifest more and more of what they desire in their life. So I combine the healing. It's like being a life coach that's very intuitive and a healer, and combining the two.
Great. And people, of course, can learn more about that by going to richarddamien.com, and that's DAMIEN, DAMIEN.com, richarddamien.com, and you can learn more about what Richard does there. And you'll also see that there is a book on that website, and that book is called A Monk in the World, which I think is a great description of you. But why don't you tell me how that happened? And it also has that great cover of you sitting
I
in
love the cover.
Times Square, right? It is awesome. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how did you arrive at that title name, and what's in the book that people might get benefit from?
Okay, well, I arrived at the title many years ago. I was following a guru from India, and for a while I thought, hey, I want to be a monk. I want to be a Swami. I just felt so high from the meditation. And I was like, wow, this is great. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. So I went to the ashram, which was in the Catskills in New York. And I met with the guru and her swamis. And I asked, you know, can I become a Swami? Can I do this? And I was told, no. Become no more. They said, no more monks, no more Swamis, become a monk in the world. And I didn't really understand what that meant. But later on, I realized it meant bring your spirituality out in the world, be involved in the world with people, with society, and don't exclude yourself in an ashram. You know, be out there with people in the world of relationships. So then eventually I wrote a book called A Monk in the World, which basically combines my different lessons that I've learned in such a way that I can share them with people about creativity, transforming fear into creativity, what your personal power is, the secrets of prosperity, many different things that people can tangibly use in their life, which it's almost like a shortcut in a way, because I share about it, but then I give people specific practices they can do, and people report that they get benefit.
Yeah, well, I know that, and in fact, you mentioned something which, again, people should understand. We have a business relationship as well in the fact that I've done a number of videos for you.
Right.
And one,
Reno Web.
yeah, thank you. And one of the things that you mentioned is a video that we did where you talked about transforming fear into positive energy. And I think that is a wonderful video. And again, I would invite listeners to go to richarddamien.com and look at that video, because I think, to me, it's very much the essence of who you are, because you have worked with a lot of creative people over the years, and I would go so far as to say that that's very much your target audience, or your signature audience are other performers. You understand where they're coming from. You understand their energy. I think that video speaks to something that a lot of people in creative arts and performing arts can relate to. So why don't you talk a little bit about how the intersection of your artistic self and your spiritual self, and your and how that all works.
Well, for a while I thought, I can't do my acting and singing anymore. I'm just going to go into the healing and the coaching. And then I kept attracting all these actors, singers, dancers, writers, painters, artists, directors, Academy Award winners. It's like all these people started coming to me, and I was like, well, I'm in that world. I'm still connected with them, but I'm supporting them in doing their thing. I'm
Sure.
at the back, I'm behind them, supporting them in manifesting their creative desires. And then I realized, what about me? So I became what's called a shadow artist.
Okay.
Where I wasn't doing my own creative work. I was just empowering others to do theirs. And then I realized, Richard, you can do both. So that's when I started singing again, like at the Breakers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I was guided to write a musical about my life, also called A Monk in the World.
Right.
Which I wrote the book, music, and lyrics for, and it was performed under a different title in Nantucket Island, and now it's being workshopped and developed for production next year.
Yeah, and that's what I want to talk about next. So we, again, we talked earlier about the fact that we had viewed the video of the original production
right
together, and so why don't you talk a little bit about how that transformed and where it's at now, and what the future of that's going to be.
Well, originally it was called Almost a Child Star.
Right.
And I showed the video. You're one of the few people I showed it to, and you were very encouraging, which I thank you.
Great.
And then a very well-known casting director who was a client of mine knew I had done that show, and she said, "Can I see the video?" And I said, "Sure." And then she met with me and said, "You've got to do this show, and we've got to rework it and expand it." Mm-hmm. And I was like, great. She said, "It's got to be out there." And then one of my clients is Susan Stroman's associate. Susan Stroman is a very famous director, choreographer, won 5 Tony Awards, like for The Producers, Young Frankenstein, Contact, Oklahoma, The Music Man. She's really well known. Yeah. And I had an inspiration to ask this gentleman named James Gray if he would direct it. So he said, yes. He said, but we need to redevelop it. I didn't realize that a director in musical theater is like a collaborator, and they work with the playwright and composer on the material. I thought the director just directs.
Oh, yeah. No, well, I suppose it's easy to believe that. I will mention too, there's a couple of good books that I read over the last couple of years. And one was
Some Enchanted Evening.
No, it wasn't. You're close, but it was Rodgers and Hammerstein. It was.
Yeah, I thought that's the name of it. Okay.
No, it was another song. But anyway, and it's on
Okay.
on the website chicagobroadcastnetwork.com. You can see about it. But it really goes. They really go into the nitty gritty of what goes on
Yes.
behind the scenes, as does Andrew Lloyd Webber's book, where he
Mm.
talks a lot about all of the behind the scenes stuff, and it's very enlightening to anybody who's interested in theater production. They really should read both of those books.
Yes. I
And what
actually have it here.
uh,
Want me to tell you the title in 1 minute?
it's
Okay.
something wonderful, isn't it? Something wonderful.
Something wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what you learn from those behind the scenes books, of course, is what a collaborative process it really is.
Right.
And that everyone almost has an equal say. The person who often gets sort of kicked to the side is the writer, the person who
Right.
had the original vision. If you look at the original vision to what the show actually turns out to be, it's often almost indistinguishable from the original, but everybody plays their part. And that's the beautiful thing about theater. I think that's what you and I learned growing up. I know it
Right.
has served me well over the years to know. People talk a lot about team sports, but I can't imagine that theater is any worse or any better when it comes to learning what it means to be part of a team. Because
Hmm.
as we say, there's no small parts, and
Right.
everybody has, no matter what your seemingly insignificant contribution is to the process, it's all part of making the whole thing work. And of course, this is what happens as you're seeing, even on the highest level, which is the highest level being the production of the show,
Right.
the writing of it, and staging of it. So interesting to see that you're in that process, and I hope the vision is continuing along the lines of what you hoped.
Yeah. It's the wonderful thing about James, the director, is that he puts out his ideas and he's very mercurial and things just come to him. And he'll throw things at me, but he always says, "You tell me if you think it will work. You tell
Sure.
me if this is where you want to go. But maybe we can go there and maybe we'll find that doesn't work, but there's like a little seed in there that does
Absolutely.
work."
Yeah, just one little nugget that you
Right.
keep that just makes a big difference. Of course, your production is a little bit different or unique in the sense that it is very personal. And I don't know if it is progressing in another direction, but it seems to me like this is a play that will be for you to perform, and unlikely that someone else will perform. I mean, this is a sort of a one man
It's a
show,
one man autobiographical musical
autobiographical. Yeah,
memory,
yeah,
but it could possibly be done by someone else, because I've learned through one of my clients, Nalaja's son, who won many awards doing one person shows. She performed in Chicago at that theater across from the water tower. What's that called downtown on Michigan Avenue? She did her show there
yeah,
and off Broadway and around the world.
yeah.
And then eventually other people started doing her show all over the world. And then I realized, yes, I want to do it. And it's my message to the world of hope and inspiration, hopefully,
Hmm.
but that I can have someone else do it. And I'm totally open to that,
Great. Yeah.
because
Well,
that's what theater's about.
absolutely. I mean, and it's interesting because some theater is about a play that goes on and has
Mm-hmm.
longevity and other thing, but art in general sometimes is more ephemeral in the sense that it's just to be enjoyed
Mm-hmm.
this moment, and doesn't necessarily have to take on it doesn't have to exist into the future and so on. I mean, it can be very much just for the moment. So
Mm-hmm.
whichever way your production turns out, I'm sure it will be enjoyable to those who are able to enjoy it. And I'm looking forward to it. Do we have an idea when this might actually appear on stage?
The idea is sometime next year. And of course, with theater, it's about the funding,
Hmm.
it's all about the money.
Sure. Yeah.
And with COVID, I actually was supposed to, I had an offer to do it at a theater company in upstate New York. and then COVID hit and they, canceled the whole thing. So now it looks like one person shows might be more desirable because they're less expensive and safer.
Well, you don't have a whole lot of people breathing in the same space.
Right.
At
Or
you,
breathing at the audience.
breathing at the audience and breathing at each other. So I think there's something to be said for that. And of course, they have increased in popularity over the years, in recent time, because I think they're easier to stage.
Mhm.
And so.
And less expensive.
Yeah. So I think it'd be great. And, you could always do it, I'm sure, as more of a concert as well, if it came down to it, right? Maybe. Possibly. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll learn more about that in subsequent sessions with Richard over the years, or I'll update my listening audience as I learn more about where you're headed on that. Again, I want to remind people that we're having a conversation here with Richard Damien, who is the author of A Monk in the World, soon to be a one-man show by the same title. Richard is a master energy healer, an actor and performer, born in Chicago, lived in Chicago off and on over the years. So tell me a little bit more about your last experience. Tell me 1 minute first about your dad and his some of his theater productions. I know what were a couple of his plays?
Yeah, he kind of got into playwriting through my acting because he was writing novels before that. And then he joined the Playwrights Center, which used to be on the corner of North and Wells.
Sure.
And it burned down. And then they put that complex there with the movie theaters.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But it burned down. It used to be there. It was very funky. But he was like, he realized I have something I need to learn. And the Playwrights Center of Chicago really provided like a workshop for playwrights, and you did a reading, and then the other playwrights in the group would discuss your work. And then if they felt it was worthwhile, they'd give you a production. So he had several productions there. And then he had an opportunity to do an equity showcase of a play he wrote called Upcar, which he did at a theater that used to be a church on the North Side. And it co-starred the actor John Pankow.
Oh, okay. Nice.
It was his, I think, first equity showcase or whatever. John Pankow was in, what was that show he was in with Helen Hunt? Or anyway, he was in a famous TV show, and he's done a lot of, and he did Amadeus on Broadway.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He's had an amazing career. So he played Frankie, the son, in my father's play. And my father won the Joseph Jefferson Citation for best, original play done in that form, not in a major theater.
Okay, nice. And then he did one at the theater building one time, I think, because I was is that what it's called, theater building? But I still lament that I was in one of the multiplex theater things, live theater places that have, and I saw a placard and it said, whatever the play was, Ben Rosenthal. And I thought, but I didn't know him as a playwright. But at the back of my mind,
you saw a placard there. Wow.
Yeah, and I was like, and to this day, I wish I had stopped in to see what was going on there. But
he was a very good playwright. I wish he had accomplished. He came very close to having his shows produced on Broadway, but didn't happen. And then he wrote screenplays, which were almost produced in Hollywood.
Yeah. But
didn't happen. So he came very close.
You had a lot of support and theatrical support from your family. And of course, your mom was a performer as well.
She was a dancer and choreographer and won talent contests and beauty contests.
Yeah. So that's great. So great family. So let's see. Let's conclude with a little bit more about Chicago. Tell me, let's see, your latest experience. Now, you just recently are back in New York. Just how long has it been now? 3 years?
3.5 years.
3.5 years. Okay. And so prior to that, you were living in Chicago.
In Chicago, the last time for 5.5 years.
5.5 years.
And I was focused more on taking care of my mother.
Yeah.
At the Breakers. I didn't live with her, but I was one of her caregivers.
Yeah, that was great. And that's where we got to spend some time and have our periodic lunches and touch base and stay in touch, which was great. Tell me tell me a little bit about some of your theater experiences in Chicago that were memorable. Give me
Okay, one of my favorite, maybe my two favorite were at Goodman Theater. One was doing Macbeth with Sam Wanamaker, who is responsible for the Globe Theater being recreated in London.
awesome. Yeah.
That was his dream for that to happen. But he directed and played Macbeth, and I was Macduff's son. And basically, it was just very exciting. And then I get killed by these robbers who come in, and I go, "They've killed me, mother! They've killed me, mother!" And it was a revolving stage, which was very noisy. And I'm supposed to just lay out there on the stage and wait until it does a total turn into the darkness and run off.
Okay.
But one day I got up too early. I got up and I, ran off in full view of the audience. And then I ran to Chris, the stage manager, and I was crying. I was like, "Oh no, I'm going to be fired. I'm going to be fired." I got off in the light. They could see me. And he's like, "Don't worry about it." And he gave me an apple. And then another exciting experience at Goodman was in Caesar and Cleopatra, where I played Ptolemy, king of Egypt, who was Cleopatra's younger brother. And in those days in Egypt, the brother and sister had sex together. That was the Egyptian way, the royalty,
Kept it in the family.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she, in real life, felt very threatened and didn't want the brother to be there. So she had him drowned.
Okay.
But Carrie Snodgrass, a wonderful actress who went to Goodman Theater, played Cleopatra.
Oh.
And that's kind of how she got discovered. Then she went to Hollywood after that. So she was very good to me. And we had a really positive, playful relationship, even though she hated my character's guts. And I just sit there in full Egyptian body paint and elaborate eye makeup like Nefertiti. I looked like Nefertiti.
Right.
But that's how the Egyptian kings dressed.
Sure.
And Joe Mantegna was one of the soldiers, and he would help me with my makeup in the dressing room. He was just a student at Goodman Theater, and he would help me. And then we remained friends after that. And then when he was doing hair at the Schubert Theater, my parents and I were sitting in the audience. At the end, they invite the audience to come up and dance on stage, and no one was doing it. And he went to the front of the stage. He went, "Ben, Shirley, Ricky, get up here and boogie." So my parents and I got up on stage and danced with the hair cast. And then a few people came up. The audience was very shy. So those are very happy memories. And
I have to just interject because of this Carrie Snodgrass story, because I don't remember hearing that before from you. I don't remember that story. And I was in 2 plays with Carrie Snodgrass.
You were?
Goodman, and we were very good friends. She was one of my favorite people. And
what were you in?
Well, in Galileo.
Yeah.
I was the Crown Prince Medici.
Mm-hmm.
And she was my lady in waiting. So I was a kid, and she took me out, and we were presented to, I had to listen to Galileo talk about his thing. And I had one great line, which was, "Is there something wrong about my stars?" I was, the universe, right? And, she would say, "Oh, no, you're," but anyway, I don't think she even had a line. She just had to, walk in and walk out.
She was a student at Goodman.
She was again at Goodman. And then in All the Way Home, where Ben Spiegel, I think.
Yes, I saw that production.
Oh, it was a wonderful production. But 3 or 4 others of us from Jack and Joe played this like street kids who were giving Ben a hard time all the time, know. And so again, though, I got to spend some time with Carrie. And anytime, I was killing some time downtown, and I'd run down to Goodman and just hang out with some of the people. And she was always, willing to spend some time with me as we're,
she was wonderful.
Yeah. So
then my mother and I saw her when she'd come back from LA, and it was between her and Liza Minnelli for The Sterile Cuckoo. Alan Pakula flew her to LA to screen test for that role. And then they went with Liza Minnelli, who of course was a big star, or a bigger star than Carrie Snodgrass.
Sure. Although she made she did.
She was nominated for the Academy Award.
Yeah, for Diary of a Mad
Housewife.
That's what everybody remembers her for. And unfortunately, she just, died far too young and
of cancer. And she was with Neil Young.
Yeah, she. I don't know if they were married or they were living.
I think they were married.
Yeah. So she, she had a short but brief career, and she was very talented, and we all miss the fact that she's not here with us. But so, well, let's conclude. I think that was great to hear some of your theater experiences, and let's just conclude with my usual Chicago story questions, which are, let's see, Italian beef or hot dog?
Hot dog.
Hot dog. Oh, because of your dad. So you were weaned on the hot dogs. Okay, hot dog right away. Great. And then pizza, thick or thin?
Thin. I know it's not Chicago. Forgive me, but I like thinner.
Those of us who grew up on the South Side believe thin crust is. Yeah,
it wasn't there on the South.
It wasn't a thing. No.
Gino's was downtown, and
yeah, exactly. So. Both fairly predictable answers. So anything else you'd like to interject or share with us before we conclude?
Oh, gosh. Well, first, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. And basically, I just want people to know that, my message of working with people, whether it's through my sessions, through my book, through my show, is that no matter how old you are, you can express your creativity and you can go beyond your limits and you can put yourself out there. Maybe you won't become a star, but, I just encourage people, paint, learn a musical instrument, take an acting class, take a dance class, put yourself out there, express your creativity, because there's incredible joy in that, and you're not too old.
Beautiful. I can't imagine that I could say anything better than that. So I'm just going to say thanks again for being here. Thanks for everybody for listening. You're listening to ChicagoBroadcastingNetwork.com. You can find us wherever you like to listen to podcasts. We're going to conclude with just another one of your a cappella songs from the Breaker reviews, and we'll just sort of go off with that. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Most friends fade or they don't make the grade. New ones are quickly made, and in a pinch, sure, they'll do. But us, old friend, what's to discuss, old friend? Here's to us, who's like us, damn few. Thank you.